Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence with psychiatrist Bernard David Beitman, MD. Dr. Beitman is the founder of the Coincidence Project. The project encourages people like you to tell each other coincidence stories. To learn more about Dr. Beitman's work, put Connecting with Coincidence in your web browser. You'll find his book, his Psychology Today blog, and the interviews from this podcast. And now your host, Bernard Beitman, MD.
Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence, CCBB 2.0. I am your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. If you wish to support us here at Connecting with Coincidence, please like and subscribe. Increasing subscriber numbers increases our reach. And those of you watching us on YouTube, write us one of your coincidence stories in the comments sections. We will reply. A few years ago, an idea trotted into my consciousness. You are an intergalactic agent. I blurted that out to a new friend, and she immediately replied, "So am I." Well, I figured if there was one more, then there are many more. So fast forward to this year, 2 years, I was listening to a podcast, The Mystical Underground, hosted by my coincidence friends, Rob and Trish McGregor. They were interviewing another coincidence friend, Amelía Karris, who has written a book called Synchronicity. During the interview, Amelia mentioned the number 12 several times, and also something about keys to knowledge, and there was something else. A light bulb flashed in my mind. Was she a Pleiadian? An Earth visitor from the star system Pleiades? Keep listening, since Amelia is our guest today. Amelía Aeon Karris, the author of Synchronicity, Unblock Your Divine Destiny, works with truth seekers to ground their unique gifts and find their calling. For the last 25 years, she has been a way-seer and business consultant, helping visionaries craft impactful businesses and design artistic lifestyles in alignment with their revolutionary spirit. She supports visionaries who want to master their energy and gain momentum through her online courses, her one-to-one mentorship, her masterminds, and transformational retreats. She excels in mentoring those who've had spiritual awakening and are ready to ground their worldview and unique abilities into a new business or special project. Welcome to the show, Amelia.
Thanks, Bernie. It's great to be here with you.
It's great to have you. And we have some things to talk about, don't we? But let's start.
Yes,
we do. Let's start with the story that you told me about you with the famous guru.
Oh, okay. Jump right in. Which part of the story? That's a big story.
It is.
Well, which part stuck out to you?
Well, the part that stuck out to me was the little girl, the 8-year-old, coming up to you.
Yes.
I mean, that's the core part of this. And you can talk about the back part of it, where you were, but there you were in India.
Yes. So I lived in India for 8 years. So I was there for a long time, and I was working with a famous guru, and whenever I needed to meet him for business meetings, he was always traveling. So he asked me to attend one of his weekend workshops. And when I arrived, I didn't know that it was 2,000 people and that I was going to be the only foreigner. And I had to just wait around for him to be free between his onstage appearances. And so I was walking around this huge mega center of spiritual seekers, thousands of people. I'm the only foreigner. I kind of stood out. So I was wearing like a hat or sunglasses, and I put earphones in just to not be bothered, because people wanted to take my photo all the time. And I was walking, sort of head to the ground, and this 8-year-old girl, I saw her running towards me, and I thought she was running past me, but she ran right at me. And then she was like skipping along next to me. And she's talking, but I'm ignoring her because I I don't know, I was just in that mood, like, I'm here for business. I don't want to talk to anyone else. And she said, am I bothering you? And I realized, okay, she's a child, stop. You know, I was talking to myself, like, be nice. So I took my earphones out and I smiled at her and she said, are you Pleiadian? And I got such a shock, you know, when is an 8-year-old girl asking me that? I didn't even know she knows what the Pleiades are, but I just looked at her. I kind of cocked my head the other way and she goes, I knew it. I knew it. I didn't say yes or no. She was just, I knew it. And she high-fived me and she's like, me too. And you're my new best friend and come with me. And it was a really incredible day because she introduced me to a group of psychic children that I ended up working with for a number of years. And they actually had me become their ambassador and speak on their behalf. And one time it was a meditation event of 60,000 people. And they asked me to come on stage and give a message for the children. But this group of psychic children, they were all, you know, extraordinary young people, all under the age of, say, 20, but some of them as small as 6. They had past life recall. They knew what star system they were from. They had incredible talents and gifts. They were singer, artists, dancers. And yeah, it was a pretty extraordinary time that I got to know them. We're still in touch today. She's in her 20s now, a professional woman.
Well, for me, look, that was like, wow, okay, because I had this like idea that I was like from an intergalactic agent. I thought there might be some other people around here, but my little cocoon of life somehow didn't run me into them. And then there was this other person, and now there's you. And now there's all these people.
Oh, I know, hundreds, if not thousands of them. Yeah.
What is them? I mean, they know the star system, they have where they came from, they know, have past lives recall, they're highly talented. This is a remarkable thing. I was surprised you'd even talk with me about it because it seems so weird. But yeah, it's like a thing that's out there. So what's new, Bernie, is kind of like what you're saying. And it's new to me is what this is. So tell us what it means to you, for example, to be an intergalactic ambassador to Earth.
Yeah, so that I was told so since I was young, I had interaction with UFOs and invisible realms. Like they would communicate to me. I was raised in a very Christian environment, so I was taught to pray at a young age, and I think that's what activated this ability. I was also in a dysfunctional home, so I spent a lot of my time alone in nature, wandering in the woods, and I would pray, and energies, entities, things would speak to me. And fast forward into my 20s, that intelligence that would speak to me started teaching me a lot of things. For example, there was like a red star that would wake me up every morning at 3:33 and flash. And I would just sort of wake up. I'd see the clock. It was 3:33. I'd look at the star and it would flash. And I would receive a lot of information and I couldn't really explain it. But my then husband would get really freaked out because it was almost 6 months every single day. And he was like, you're doing it again. It's 3:33. So we both saw, okay, there's something with this number. And I received a lot of information about technology, but right after that, we launched one of the first web design companies in the world. And I became an expert in artificial intelligence and high tech without a college degree or any studies in it.
Because of all these downloads, as we call them, that you were getting lots of information, and
a lot.
What I'm looking for, and you're kind of telling me this, is that ambassadors usually try to make connections between where they come from and where they are being an ambassador to. So
Yeah, that was what was confusing me. And I can't tell you that I have all the answers to how that happened, but I knew that it was my somehow, just like cognitively, not intellectually, but that it was my own essence that lives there, communicating with me here, like a future version of me, assisting me towards my mission. And that's when I started to hear, you're an intergalactic ambassador, and we need you to do this. So it was always guiding my career. I mean, at that time, I was in my early 20s. I had never ran a business before. I kind of just figured it all out as I went. But all along the way, I received my information from an invisible source in the stars. And whenever I get lost or whenever I get confused about what I'm supposed to do, I just literally ask and the answer is received.
One of the metaphors that I use for that, I think, is people on Earth having headphones that have communication with the informant in someplace else and instructing you. It's a kind of a tech metaphor of what you're describing, but you could tune in to what they tuned into you when you needed information. It had to go both ways, where you had to think about it together. So they were guiding you into your career.
Yes, and they always have,
and
at every stage. And I've had a lot of career changes over the years, like a lot of weird pivots. I've lived in 6 different countries, and it has guided me every step of the way. Like weird golden doors would open, I would walk through them. There's no rhyme or reason why I should be given those opportunities. It was just literally me listening to the information, and being very surprised at the magical ride that was put on.
We might call those coincidences or synchronicities. Yes, exactly. We might do that. So there's somebody calls coincidence control center that kind of designs these coincidences. There's one for Earth, and there's one at different levels of the galaxy. And you look like you've been tuning in not to the local one in the psychosphere around Earth, but someplace outside, helping create coincidences for you on your path into the future. I know you've done a lot of things here, and my sense for what we need on Earth includes not just taking care of the Earth, which is something I know you're deeply devoted to, and live in a beautiful place in Mexico that helps inspire you to think like that. But as a psychiatrist and doing psychotherapy, I'm continually struck by how difficult interpersonal relationships are for people on Earth. And that's where my mission seems to have something to do with what I'm doing here, is like trying to bring that out into the fuller discussion. Not that it isn't out there, but psychologists get caught up in their own narrow ways of thinking about things. And we need a more spiritual, higher order way of thinking about this reality and getting along better than on this Earth. There's so much hatred always been around. It's just becoming more evident now. How does your mission involve any of that interpersonal group and larger healing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that's the key. And, my career's taken me through a lot of different levels where those understanding came to me, where I was working with businesses and corporations. And then I worked with the leaders of those corporations because I realized there was no way to change the corporation. You had to change the individual, the leader of it. And then I realized that the leaders don't want to get into the spiritual stuff. So then I started working just with consciousness and kind of moved into spiritual teaching and ecology. And then I was realizing environmentalists didn't really want to talk about spirit or honor the consciousness, and people who were deeply spiritual didn't want to honor the Earth. And it was really interesting, like these kind of missions I was put on, and then it brought me back to the US at one point after those 8 years in India. And I had seeded eco communities. I was very much into group dynamics and group, the new community of the future. And what I was told was that we can't have that interpersonal connection until we eradicate and learn how to govern ourselves and eradicate all of the disease that lives within our own field. And that's when I wrote the book, Unlock Your Divine Destiny, Synchronicity, because it was a message to the individual that until we really learn, and it's not just learning how to be good people, it's learning how to hold our energetic framework, like how to be a sovereign being of light, which is the starseed that I call the starseed. It's not a concept, it's an actual physiological, energetic, anatomical structure.
That keep going, because that starseed idea is so central to what you describe in your book. And it's alluded to a lot, but I'm a guy that likes to get details and clarity. And starseed sounds to me, to begin with, that we are seeded from the stars, that there's stars in us. Every man and woman is a star in some way, or is a star. The star seed is a seed that is to grow from each of us, and the heart seems to be the beginning location for that. But tell us more about what star seed means to you.
Yeah, thank you for asking, because I think I need to clarify more specifically, because a lot of people use that term just to mean that. And yes, we are from the stars, but each one of us has our own spiritual lineage, like where our soul originates from, why it came to Earth. The star seed is an actual, let's call it like an organ that lives inside you that needs to be switched on. So it works in the energetic form of you. So you know what the morphogenetic field is around the body, that toroidal energetic field that's been measured by quantum physics. People have been able to actually see it with certain technology. But when you're in deep meditation, this is how I learned it. In deep meditation, you can switch it on. And when you switch it on, it changes your energetic field so that you can then be free of any sort of manipulation or energetic controls. So all of us are being controlled by different energetic waves, whether they're EMFs or radio waves. We all use Wi-Fi, and there's so many devices, radio waves, we can't see them, but they're there and they're sending information all the time. So our energetic field needs to become sovereign and shaped properly in order to awaken to what we actually are. So as long as our field is being contorted, like when I look at most people's fields from my spiritual sight, I can see that they're not well formed. They're, they have holes all over it. They're ripped up. Some people don't even live inside of their energetic form. They kind of float above. And so they have this feeling of like a disconnection, or they're not really embodied. They can't maybe feel their bodies so often. A lot of people float like that. We call them, airheads or absent-minded or disassociated. Like we have all these terms for people like that. But when you look from spiritual sight, or if we could measure it with a specific kind of camera, you could see that they're not embodied in the energetic form that encases the body. And so when we activate the starseed, it starts to reform our morphogenetic field back to its original codex. And that's when we can fulfill our potential That's when our intelligence, our internal intelligence, turns on, when we drop out of the mind, because the mind can only comprehend so much, but our star seed has access to all wisdom, all knowing, from where we originate and what our soul mission is. So I was guided to write the book and to teach people how to be sovereign. It's an energetic practice. It's a muscle that we have to train. And once you start activating it, your evolutionary process speeds up quite quickly.
There's several words you used in there. The airhead one, and what I thought of as airhead conventionally is that they're not grounded in their bodies. And somehow there's a relationship between energy fields and being grounded in your body from what you're being able to say. You mentioned the word codex, which I sounded like you were saying this, the particular, let me say, algorithm by which your energy field is operating, or optimally operating. So you find that by doing the deep meditations to find that place where your codex is activated, or the algorithm is activated to get that electromagnetic field. The electromagnetic field is so important for people to understand. It's something that is palpable if they pay attention to it. And that's what I'm trying to be able to help people do, is recognize first that it's there. You talk about it being measured. So the electromagnetic field is very important. The star seed and its relationship to the electromagnetic field is very important. And the idea of being sovereign is very important fundamentally in all this, so that other influences don't get into through your electromagnetic field. So you have what might be, in conventional terms, strong boundaries, and boundaries against electromagnetic energy from other sources.
Yeah, and they all play together. Like, we can work from the physical realm out, and we also need to work from the spiritual realm into the physical. When we activate our own codex, or when we receive that information, that's when we can actually become who we're destined to be, or really bring in our human potential from the stars, from that source. Like, if you were to think of an acorn planted in the ground, we don't know, does the acorn know what kind of tree it's going to be? No, it holds the potential, and it's all inside that small seed. And not until it's watered and has the right sunlight does it grow roots and start to grow, into this mighty oak. So it has to grow stronger, and then eventually, when it's in full bloom or in full extent, you can see, oh my goodness, that small little seed was this mighty tree. And we're all like that. We all have that intelligence inside us, and it is inside of our heart, and it's locked in there. And when you do meditation and other forms of activating, I've sped it up, because I should let you know that I lived in isolation in the woods for years, and I spent about 5 years meditating almost 8 hours a day.
Wow.
So this didn't come easily. It came through a ton of shamanic initiations, of awakening to all my senses, my sight turned on. And I thought at first, like, why am I having these huge awakening experiences, almost to the point of like a full satori? And sometimes it would last for days. One time it lasted for 2 weeks, where I just could see gold and everything was so perfect, and I could feel my entire potential. But then I had subsequently, like, many years of darkness. It's like the pendulum swung in the other direction, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't hold these heightened spiritual experiences that I was having. And that's when I started to see my field, and then I started to see everyone else's field. And it was this long discovery, and I've simplified it into my book. And when I do group guided meditations, and we all start to activate our star seeds, something really incredible happens. Like, we reach harmonics, When one person opens, it's like that 100th monkey thing, like suddenly it's popcorn, all the seeds start popping. And then people who've never been able to do it before, their field gets entrained because someone there already can do it. So I would notice in group meditative states when I would lead this and bring us into that frequency, really magical things happen, and people start remembering exactly where they're from. They start having their mission downloaded to them, and it's quite life-changing for many of us, but we can't hold it. So I'm waiting for that number, that magic number where we actually can hold the frequency for a period of time, because then it will shift for our entire soul group.
That magic number you're talking about is the number of people here on Earth. I think you're talking about real.
I think we need, this is what I've understood from my experiences, that we need 12 people to hold steady physically to open those dimensions where we get the harmonic between dimensions.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, since I've had a little bit of an experience like that, where the energy that I was sharing with somebody was also out there, affected everybody else around us. It's a kind of generalizing, you can't hold it, but what you're talking about has been around a little bit. It takes like 11% of the people to have a different political viewpoint to make a big change in the place, some number like that. It was a narrower study than what we're talking about, but that's what you're talking about, getting enough people together. And what I keep wondering about reading your book is, have you found the 12 people who can hold that harmonic and then do the vibrational thing to get to the 144 you're talking about, and then hold the whole thing steady so it spreads?
Unfortunately, no. I haven't found the 12 here that can do it. And it actually depresses me a lot, which is why I want my book out as far and wide as possible, and my meditations, because I know that there are 12 people on the planet who can do it. If we could all do it simultaneously at the same time, that's what switches it. I don't think we need to be physically in the same room, but we need to do it at the same time.
I think it helps to be in the same room for a little while, just so you know it's there. It just kind of, I think it helps that. But
yeah, I've had close to it. I've had groups where, 5, 6 of us are able to hold the frequency. I've done large meditations. One time we had like 1,500 people, but that was very difficult. There was tons of interference.
Yeah, I could see that.
I did 100-something people, and that was also quite difficult to hold. We had like a moment where we could get into harmonics, but in smaller groups, like 6, 12, 15,
yeah,
we've been able to hold it for sometimes 30 minutes, an hour, and it's quite extraordinary. Now, this is really different from regular meditation. So there's a lot of meditators in the world, but they're not holding the starseed active in the body. And that's why it's not shifting. Like, it's a beginning. And sorry, I realized my mic just fell. It's a beginning. And I think that it helps. And that deep meditation can bring us to that point, but we need to become sovereign first. Like, people need to understand the mechanics of sovereignty energetically. They need to become aware. So even if you can't see your energetic field, you can intend that it be sovereign. You can intend that you're sourcing your energy from the earth and the central sun, and you can intend that you're centered in the center of your being, and asking all other energy to leave. And those intentions bring you closer to that.
And what you're saying reminds me a lot of what psychotherapists who originated new schools of therapy would do. And I've seen this in other spiritual practice, which it ends up being something like this is the way I did it, and this is the way I think it might help you to do it, because I did it this way. And I've had trouble with that. Because it tends to get a little egotistical, because I did it my way becomes the right way for everybody to do it after a while. So there's a place at which doing it yourself is really important, where you get there. But there's also a place at which you have to recognize that other people have to find their own way to it.
So yes, I agree that people have to find their own way to it, but when you get there, it's the same. Like the energetic structuring is the same. And when you activate your starseed and you're able to hold it like in an embodied state, it's obvious for anyone who has vision. Like if we had the device to take a photograph,
it would be obvious.
It's gonna be obvious.
But you can, you can feel it. I can feel it. You can see it. There's different ways that people can pick up that energetic field is coherent in the way you're describing it. And the way I look at this is that what you're bringing to our audience and others through your book is that the important thing is your energetic field. And the idea of a starseed can be useful to some people. It certainly was to you. That it emanates from the heart, I think, is a generalizable thing from my experience of it. I like the idea of starseed, and I think it can be useful as I think more about it, as it emanates out, and the acorn growing to create a codex-based energy field around you is what's important. It can be useful, but the objective for the individual, from what I can tell from you, is being able to be autonomous, to be sovereign within your own coherent codex-based energy field. Is that right?
Absolutely. It's imperative for us to shift consciousness in totality to release the controls. So there's a lot of spiritual teachers out there. There's a lot of people teaching meditation. Unfortunately, what I found to my great despair, most of them, or many of them, are not sovereign. They are not holding their frequency in a clear way. A lot of them are being controlled by other entities, other beings. Some of them, I went through many mystery schools when I had my spiritual awakening. I was seeking the best, mystics, shamans, healers, teachers all over the world, trying to find answers to what was happening to me, because I was blown open. And unfortunately, nobody could teach me exactly what to do. And I don't want to be a spiritual teacher. I just want to share what I discovered, which none of them taught me, which was this: how to be sovereign. Because when a lot of meditations have you focusing in different areas, like different chakras, mostly in the third eye. Some, psychic schools have people go up to the 9th chakra. And from those chakras, if you center your consciousness there, sure, you got, you can astral travel, you can remote view, you have incredible psychic vision, but it leaves your body and your vehicle completely open to attack. And most people who are reading like that are under heavy influence of external intrusion, let's call it. And
well, let's stay with that for a minute, because there's been a warning by, from where I heard it in India, of advanced meditators and people who have gotten really spiritual, to be careful about the cities. And it's not the city of New York kind of cities.
No, the cities, yeah.
It's SIDDHI, which are these parapsychological capacities, which you just so nicely listed. And I hadn't really heard so clearly that when you do that, get out there with astral projection and remote viewing, you lose the sovereignty around your body and your energetic field, and become more open to being influenced. That is a good reason to avoid the cities thing. So funny thing is, with all my studies with coincidences, I got interested in all the parapsychological things. And I said, what was wrong with that? What was wrong with doing that? Telepathy, clairvoyance, what's wrong with doing that? Well, lately, I've been getting bored with hearing all the stories of past life connections that people are having, which is an important part of all this, but not it, and other telepathic stuff, and saying, no, I think I'm getting past all that. And now you're saying the reason to get past that, because I keep in mind from what you're talking about here is, for you, activate the starseed. For me, however you do it from your heart, create a coherent energy field around you that you can then maintain.
Yes, I love that. That's perfect. Beautifully said. You need to maintain it. And you can still have cities open, but you're going to read it. It's harder. Like, it's much easier to read outside your field. Like, if I jump out of my field, I can see everything, but it leaves my body open to disease, attack, all kinds of nasty stuff.
And let's follow up on that, because a friend of ours, Juliet Trail, was in the West Coast with some meditation teachers, and they don't do meditation anymore. Why? Because it becomes spiritual bypass, where people don't do the regular world, which is what I kind of thought was true, but I'm glad to get the confirmation from hearing out there. Also, there's so many people who are gurus who are being somehow not enlightened in their behavior with people. And you're giving us an idea about how that happens.
Most of them.
Most
yeah,
of them.
It's very unfortunate. And I actually, I actually,
oh, you're awful.
eating.
You're awful. But
no,
look what you're
true.
saying, but it's so true.
It's true. And unfortunately,
it needs to be said. It needs to be said. Let me give you.
No, I know them. I've been backstage with them. I've seen it. They've tried to kill me. Like, I know firsthand experience.
So here's a substitute. Try this one out. Try this one out, Amelia. The way to spell guru is G-U-R-U.
Yeah.
Have you heard that one?
They might not even be them. Like, unfortunately,
you are you. You are you, not them.
Yeah.
You, Amelia, are you. That's guru. Yeah. You're the guru. That's what I mean. G.
Oh, yeah.
You are you.
You
are you. That's your sovereign message. So many things you can like turn around, like cities and playing around with those. I like those things. And here, guru becomes, no, you. When you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. But this is like a simple way of talking about gurus. This is so important to slow down here for a minute and have the people listening and watching this recognize not just my thought about it, but your experience with gurus, that most of them, not all of them, most of them are being inhabited, controlled, influenced by forces that are inside of them, maybe outside of them, but you have to watch out. But there are some, and you've known them too, where you walk into their presence and they are holding that energy field in their codex way, and they have it. And you go in there very much like you just described, and you begin to feel that with them, and you get elevated with them. You can feel it, and it resonates with you for a while. So they teach you by experience with them.
Yes. And I want to say that doesn't mean that they are heavenly, pure, and only do good. Okay. Because this is, I've been around
even the ones who are even the
strongest magicians.
Wait. Even the ones that you can vibrate with and feel elevated from. That's I want to clarify that. Thank you. Okay. It's that subset.
As bright as you are, as dark as your shadow. Like, we are dualistic creatures. Not everyone comes from the same source. Not everybody has the same ethics and value and moral code. I have been around I would call them magicians, when you enter the world of magic, like I can create that frequency and make people feel like that all the time. And I did. And in India, people started praying to me and touching me. And I'm like, why are you touching me? You have no idea where I come from, what my background is, and that I used to do lots of drugs and that I've been abused heavily. And, I have a horrible family. And like, why are you touching me? Like, I'm just trying to liberate myself from my own suffering. Like, stop touching me. So I started to liberate them. Like, no, you can do it. Like, here's how you do it. It doesn't mean you're above the law. But many of them think that. And unfortunately, everybody in the physical form has ego. And it's very intoxicating when you're able to control a crowd.
Oh yeah,
It's intoxicating when you come into your power, when you realize all your cities are open and you're able to walk into a room and change the frequency of everyone in there because your power is stronger than theirs. That doesn't mean you're a higher God. It just means you've activated, period. And so why this pedestal stuff? And I was guilty of it. I mean, I would be in rooms with very powerful people and they were my equals. Like, they didn't know where I came from, but they knew that they couldn't infiltrate my field and I didn't let them. And sometimes they battle with me. A lot of shamans, a lot of mystical people who meet me, they start battling with me to see if they can dominate my field. And because I've learned how to be sovereign, and I'm just this little old me, like where I come from, I'm not with the pedigree and putting myself on every billboard and like, worship me thing. And why are they so challenged by me? And why do they try to kill me? And I'm so sick of this spiritual seeking. Listen, every single being here is spiritual, period. It's in our anatomy. Not one of us is more spiritual than the other. Some people have activated their codex and some people are sleeping. And for me, when we all wake up, it doesn't mean we all are good seeds. Like, we all have different gardeners, we all have different fruits and flavors. And it doesn't mean that just because you can do that means you're somehow holy and perfect. And I am so sick of people doing that to me because I'm like, look, yes, I've activated. I had all these cities wake up. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can control energy, but I make sure that there's a council around me checking me all the time. I have people checking on me, telling me if I overstep, because it's very easy to do. And unfortunately, most people come into power and they're their own worst nightmare.
Well, tell us how you've overstepped and had to be called on it.
How I've overstepped. Well, when I was younger in my 20s, when I was running tech companies, when I was receiving all that information from the stars, I didn't tell people where my information came from, but I used it to command the room. I mean, most people working for me were much older than me, many of them with PhDs, MBAs, and I barely graduated high school, so it was an ego trip for me. And
well, let's fast forward from that, because I understand that, to more present, where you now have your codex pretty well activated on a regular basis. You have a sense of sovereignty. And so people come to you, like the people in India, and want to touch you. The people just around you, wherever you are, will feed that ego part of you that's still in you. And I wonder if you could give us a more current illustration, not just you're the smartest guy in the room somehow and nobody knows how you did it, but here now that you are able to make people feel good by being around them, because they can resonate with your energy field. And tell us how you might have gotten in trouble with that recently.
Recently, I try to check myself. I mean,
how do you check yourself?
I don't like to be in authoritarian positions, even though, I have things to teach. If I feel that other people are putting me on a pedestal or somehow like I get elevated, whether they do it or I do it. I have sort of inbuilt checks that kind of bring me to
I
the
understand
ground
that.
level. So
I understand that.
sometimes it's from a course correction outside me, like my house burned down, or something's taken away from me. I have, there's things that keep me very human, like I'm on the ground with the people.
Well,
I do circle structure.
I do understand that very well, because you sent me a lovely text message that was, to me, aggrandizing of my ego. That's the way I felt it. And you were telling me how special I was, and I'm going to translate it in my way, in doing what I'm doing with the Coincidence Project. I mean, it was very heartfelt and very warm, but it was the sort of thing that I'm learning to have to be careful about. It's not just your writing, because you did it, but there was a lot of positive feeling in there, a lot of appreciation of me for what I am doing, that had in it the seeds of potential ego inflation. And I had to catch myself doing that. Now, if you're doing that with me, and I'm picking that up, and you can argue, you can tell me how it was, might have been for you, that means it's still in you, to me, that you want that same thing coming back to you. That's what that means to me.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, for me, that letter to you, it was a love letter from a soul to a soul. And for me, the world that I want to create is one that is based on family values and right relation and soul to soul connection. I want to be free to love deeply without it being askewed or confused. And I want to stay in the innocence of my love, without it being romantic or egotistical. Like, it's just what it is. And I think in that moment, with you, Bernie, I felt you needed to be appreciated. And I think all of us do, like there's days that are really hard. Like we are going to wake up, like when you're doing a project. So this is why I love business, because business keeps us grounded. Business keeps us humble. And that's why I really help people to stay embodied and grounded through a business or a special project or something that's in service to the greater good, because it's kind of, you don't really get a lot of gratitude when you're a leader. You do stuff and you're thinking about everyone else and giving to everyone else, and you can get easily depleted, easily run down. And there's days that are really hard and you want to give up and be like, well, what's the point? Like, nobody's getting it. It's not making me any money. Like, my life's not getting better. Is it really working? And we all have those moments. And I felt you were having one of those moments. You might not have, but I felt like I needed to help you be a strong leader.
And this is where I'm talking about how it's important that we help each other evolve, that it's not, to me, it's not
Absolutely.
just sovereignty of me, because the sovereignty is an illusion in a way, because we're all part of something too. And that our self-identity depends so much on our social groups as well. So that's why I'm glad that we're talking about this, because you saw me something like in the position you have been in business, where I needed some appreciation. And I did appreciate it, but I had to show your letter to me, to my therapist, and she's a woman. And she's a woman, because I had needed to help translating it, because I'm a guy, and guys have this, I grew up in the 50s, so I'm not used to this still. I mean, I'm getting more understanding of it, but there's still like, what is she saying to me? I kind of knew, what you were saying, kind of, but the feeling in it was confusing to me. And it's something that I wanted to be able to clarify with you, which you did in the next message where you called me friend. And that's what I kind of knew you were doing, but the feeling in it was not just about me, is what I'm saying. It's about your needing what you were giving me as well, I think.
Well, yes, I guess so. I need, I need comrades, and I see you as a comrade. You know, I feel that we're here to illuminate the golden network, and it is a heart-based connection. And there's a few in our group of coincidence ambassadors that I feel a very strong heart connection with. And I feel that we need to strengthen that. And for me, what's also really important is right relations. So when I see myself in the 5D matrix, or as my illuminated, light-bodied self, love is ubiquitous. That is what keeps us in that frequency. I'm often in that frequency and not in the physical realm, and I forget often about the male-female dynamic, or how some people perceive love or confuse love and sexuality and attraction. Like, most of the time I'm not there. Like, I don't even notice it when I'm in a love frequency. It's just love, and it doesn't have anything to do with
See, that's so important for me to hear. I mean, I kind of know that, but it's really helpful for me to hear, because I was so glad to be able to clarify, even though it need words sometimes to just clarify it, that in your book, the way you, let me say, put down romance, you just almost made fun of it. The chase and catch thrill thing, which I know very well because it's fun. It really is fun. I've kind of been addicted to it. It's just there. It's the dopamine thing. But even when you have that, the brain, after 3 months or a year or more, goes back to its old way of being. The romance thing's not there. And I'm saying it from a brain perspective, but you said it from just, it's a waste of time perspective, that this is not something to do. And I wanted to just, even the last time I was talking to you, I wanted to say, I love you too. And I want to be able to say that in the way that you're talking about, because I want to be able to love fully myself, because there's a lot of love in me, and there's a lot of love in you, and there's a lot of love in a lot of people. And I want to be able to say love to you and not have it be meaning something different other than whatever we mean by the fifth dimensional version of that, but expressing it on this plane.
Yeah, I think that love is been taken out of context and distorted so deeply, purposefully, because love is our lifeline, and love is what overcomes fear, and love is what creates beauty and harmony in our life. And without love, we cease to exist. You know, we cease to be human, honestly. Like, we just become these beast-like creatures that are feeding off of each other. And I think when we're in the push-pull dynamic,
What's the push-pull dynamic? What is that?
The push, well, it's kind of like what did you call it? The chase and
the chase and capture.
Chase and capture. Yeah, that's a very old like patriarchal structure that keeps us in like fight or flight mode. It's not a deep resting place. It's not a safe place. It keeps us in turmoil, in inner turmoil.
Women are doing that more and more now, though.
Oh, I think everybody is, because everyone's in fight or flight. And it is a part of our primal instinct. It's not that we don't have it.
Yeah.
It's just that it's not love. Let's just, we need to just differentiate. Love is love. And love doesn't cause harm. Love isn't about a game. Love is pure. But many people say, oh, I love him, or, oh, I love him. And they confuse sexuality and love. But what about all the other relations?
But
you know?
And that's what we're talking about, to be able to have multiple loving relationships with people. And you are feeling something like that with some of the coincidence ambassadors. And I'm wondering if maybe your star guidance characters are like and I'm getting some of it too. It's not as clear to me that I get guidance. I have these headphones on, but I do get some messages, but mostly they come in through the trees. That's where I get some of my direct guidance, the trees in the forest that I'm going to go to. Finally, I haven't seen them for a while, over on Saturday. That maybe we are guided, you and I, for me to pick up your Pleiadian origins from just a few things you said, because I'm tuning into that. And I got a book, Barbara Marciniak's, which you haven't read, but The Earth, but it's that you don't have to. It's like what stuff you know. So if I could match that to you, and then you could tell me there's all these kids in India who are Pleiadians, and one of them comes up to you and says, I recognize you as one, that these are potential parts of, let me say, somebody's monad or somebody. But I think can be a confusion between I recognize them from another star system and the kinds of monads and soul systems you're talking about here on Earth, right?
Yeah, okay. So also when we talk about where we're from in the stars, our soul might have traversed many different star systems. So, you know, I am Pleiadian, but I have memories of being in other star systems as well, just like, you know, past life incarnations. So yeah, that can make it confusing. And the monad is the oversoul. It's the place we belong to. It's the home of our soul. And not everyone in our monad, which is the 144, the 12 groups of 12, not everyone in our monad is embodied or human. Some might still be souls existing in the monad, but it's a hive mind. It's like, it's the I am presence that speaks through you. You're connected to your monad in pure love. And one thing I do want to say too is Pleiadian love is very different from a lot of other types of love. So Pleiadian love is very pure in its essence. It's just, it's not just, it is, it's what calls us home. Like when we're able to give and receive love or feel love, we're in our power, in our containment. It's not used to manipulate or askew. And it was a good lesson for me to write that to you and see your response, because many times I have been sexually abused a number of times by people who know me, who've confused that. They think that my love for them means something sexual, and it has nothing to do with my sexuality. And it's always a shock to me every single time it's happened. Like, wow, how did you think sexual? But I'm forgetting where they're operating from, like where their you know, life story and experiences have brought them. And you would think by now I would know that, but it was not, it was really not to elicit anything.
I didn't think so, but I needed to clarify that with the help of another woman. And then you helped clarify, which I kind of thought you might, because I needed that, being as I am where I am in my evolution. And I so much appreciate being able to love you in the way we're talking about. It's just so freeing.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's liberation, to be able to love for the sake of love. Like, yeah, we need to restore it. You know, I'm here to restore love on the planet, to let people know that they are loved and that it's safe to love, and that love has nothing to do with your sexuality. Hopefully you bring love into your sexual life. A lot of people don't have love and sex, any connection, but they're separate, and we need to see them as they are.
Well, we do see them as they are. And I want to go back to one thing, and we're going to have to get it to come to the end of this in a bit. Yeah. But on the dance floor, I have made what I look back now to be soul connections with another person, where I felt their deep something or other. I couldn't recognize it then, and it got really confusing. One person channeled the divine feminine the first time I danced with her, and I was so caught up in that I went home with her energy field deeply meshed in mine. And something like that happened several other times as well. I was confused by that. I thought it was like love. And I got caught into something with her, and I had to go through a bunch of things that were very educational to me and helped grow me up, to be able to step back from it. So I can see how being able to open yourself up, your soul up with somebody else to allow a soul connection can be used in a manipulative way, because she was doing that. And I think that's important. I think that's an important thing for us to know, that that was love in the kind you're talking about, but was used in a trickery way. And that
it could be a past life connection that got reactivated and remembered and then confused, and then in departure of it, being enraptured in the high of it, wanting it to continue, then people leave tendrils in each other and try to feed off it way beyond its expiration date. Like, you should be able to come, experience, dance, and leave intact. But if you're not intact when you leave and you start doing all this, then of course you just become, vampiric. And then it's off balance. So it could have been that in the moment there was a pure connection. And I think a lot of this has to do with people's just miseducation or uneducation, and just pure ignorance out of lack of not knowing. And that's why I wrote the book, and why I describe the container so much, and why it's so important that each one of us learn. We talk about boundaries, but boundaries are energetic first and verbals after that. When we actually can say
boundaries are energetic. Hey, headlines. Boundaries are energetic first, and the words may help you establish them and may help you establish other person to know those boundaries, but those boundaries are energetic first, and we need to be able to operate our energy fields better than we do, is the simple message. The simple message I'm getting from what you're saying, and I believe this too. So there are many different ways I think, to do this with your energy field, different metaphors. The starseed from the heart is a very good one, but from the heart without even thinking starseed is like also a way that some people are doing it. But the starseed one connects us to something else. And
it activates what you're here to do. It activates your soul mission. And that's what's important to me, that you do your soul mission.
Well, yeah. I mean, guess what my soul mission is? Hey, connect with coincidence. That's what I'm doing. I do want you to know about my needing to be told I'm not alone, and that I'm appreciated. I appreciated that, and that it was a nice thing for you to do. But maybe in a situation like that, you could ask me how I'm doing running this, instead of making an assumption and putting some of what your ideas about me are onto me. So that makes it a clearer discussion, makes it a clearer communication. So if you would have asked me that, that's where I'm being interpersonal with energy fields. It's like respecting the boundaries through communication like that.
Yes, and I do need to remember to speak, honestly. Like, it took me a very long time to be able to communicate with words. I've been silent a big portion of my life. I don't really need words to communicate with people, and it's difficult for me to somehow, I speak slowly whenever I'm in an interview. I'm like, okay, how can I communicate all of this through language feels slow, frustrating, and inadequate so much of the time.
Yeah.
And then I sometimes I get to the answer, or what I think is the solution, and I give that before I even realize we're not even on the same frequency band, right? So I get it, and I so appreciate that. I'm going to learn to ask more questions too. It's been an ongoing process.
This is more specific, and what I think we're talking about here is what I've been having to work on. I didn't learn to talk start talking till I was 4, and I've had to learn how to talk to people. I've had to learn it, especially I've learned it mostly talking with girls and women because they know how to talk better than guys do. But there's a lot of subtlety in learning how to speak. What my brought up to you here was an interpersonal thing.
Yeah.
And that what I see from what you're describing, how much you've developed your own sovereignty because you've had to. You have had to, given all the things that have happened to you. You needed to have those boundaries built so that you could protect your beautiful soul from these people invading you. What I'm suggesting is a particular form of speech where it says, I want to say something to you about your role as the coincidence guy. And I want to ask you how you are feeling doing this, because I'm wondering if maybe it's kind of getting to whatever you want to say to that. And then I could answer that, because that's a good question I would have liked to have answered. Because I was thinking about that then anyway. That would have been more useful to me than the expression that you did, which would have been a form, if you've done that way, it would have been a form of love, and we would have been able to say we love each other somehow and be able to get through that. What do you think of that idea?
I like it. I like it a lot. Mm-hmm.
Good. Good.
I think I always have this need for speed, but I need to slow down often. I remind myself of that all the time.
We speed up by slowing down a lot of times.
Yeah, I have that as my key in the book. Slow down to speed up. Slow down to
I thought I read that.
I have to remind myself.
That's why you write it. I mean,
oh yeah.
When I tell people things, when my patients, I got to listen to some of that because I'm talking to myself, and that's we are talking to ourselves when we talk to each other a lot of times, and we just have to know that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bernie, for that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, and thank you for your appreciation for me and your understanding of what I'm doing with this. But the Coincidence Project has gotten to a different level. We can talk about that another time. But it's like solidifying, and I'm doing other things like with it to expand it further, like randonauts,
awesome.
like the randonauts. You know about them?
That's you told me about them. Yeah.
I told you about that. Well, yeah, I did. I'm going to do it in the next, talk a little bit more about the next coincidence meeting. But to be able to connect with you, Amelia, to be able to connect with you, with my heart, you're just beautiful. You are beautiful.
Thank you, Bernie. I see you, and you're such a beautiful soul. Yes, I see you. I see everything you're doing, everything that you're on your mission, and however I can help make sure that it stays grounded and clear and vibrant, and I'm here for that. Mm-hmm.
You're hired.
So, yeah, we're in this together. Yeah,
we're in this together.
Yeah,
we're in this together. We're in this together.
Yes.
Well,
thank you for having me with you.
You're welcome. And it's a delight. It's a delight talking with you, Amelia. It really is.
Same.
This psychosphere is our mental atmosphere, like a hologram of cosmic consciousness.